Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. Maria Munoz, a young woman full of life, met a tragic end on September 22, 2020 that shocked her loved ones. The community was puzzled about who could have done such a terrible thing until they were shocked to discover that Maria's own husband was the unexpected suspect. As the details emerged, a web of secrets and deception was revealed, leaving everyone close to Maria shocked and saddened. In the bustling state of Texas, a shocking event unfolded that left everyone shocked. Maria Munoz, a young and lively woman full of dreams, met a tragic end that deeply affected her family and friends. The events leading to her unexpected death on September 22, 2020 left many stunned, especially when suspicions turned toward her own husband as the possible culprit. The story took a dark turn when toxicology reports found 7 different drugs in her system. Also, it's hard to believe Maria's journal was also the key evidence that helped catch the killer. It's crazy to think that something Maria wrote downplayed such a big part in solving the case. As the investigation progressed, secrets began to surface, revealing a side of the story that nobody saw coming. Maria Munoz, born on January 25, 1989, was one of 3 children to Marisol Rodriguez and Jorge Luis Munoz. Growing up in a vibrant and loving household in Puerto Rico, she faced early loss when her mother passed away. Also, around that time, she met Joel Pellet. Despite this hardship, Maria took on the role of caregiver for her siblings, Marisol Munoz and Peter Hernandez. Maria and Pellet first met in Puerto Rico, Maria's home country. At that time, Pellet was a nursing student with big dreams, and Maria was also a nurse. Pellet was 11 years older than Maria, but despite the age gap of 11 years, they both tied the knot in 2011. Later, they moved to Laredo, Texas, where Pellet secured a prestigious position as a nurse anesthetist at a local hospital, bringing in a substantial income. Their newfound financial stability afforded them a life of extravagance, filled with luxury cars and extravagant vacations. Maria Munoz, aged 31, lived in Laredo, Texas, as a full-time mother caring for her 2 young sons and her husband, Joel Pellet, aged 42. She left her job just to take good care of her children. Maria, a loving stay-at-home mom, cherished her 2 young boys. Every day she would take them to the park to play and read to them before bedtime, showing her dedication as a mother. While she enjoyed being at home with her children, she also found joy in playing the piano as a hobby. Despite her happiness as a stay-at-home mom, she always held on to her dream of returning to school and becoming a nurse again. For a long time, everything appeared to be going smoothly in their relationship. Pellet would often share pictures of his wife and children, proudly talking about how wonderful they were to his friends and colleagues. However, behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. In the year 2018, shortly after Maria welcomed their second son, those close to Pellet began to observe a shift in his behavior. He underwent a noticeable transformation, losing weight and gaining muscle. He also became increasingly sociable with other women, displaying flirtatious behavior that did not align with the conduct expected of a married man. He began removing photos that featured his wife and children, instead opting to post pictures of himself alone. This change in his online activity gave the impression that he was living a single life, without the responsibilities and commitments of a married man with a family. That same year, the colleagues observed Pellet becoming increasingly friendly with a surgical nurse named Janet Arredondo. Over time, it became clear that they both had started a secret relationship, carrying on an affair behind Maria's back. But in early 2020, Maria's worst fears came true. She found airline tickets that Pellet had bought for himself and Janet to travel to Europe. This discovery left Maria heartbroken and depressed. She had trusted him and thought their marriage was strong, but then she felt betrayed. Maria was devastated to learn that the life they had built together for 10 years was a lie. She didn't know how to move forward, feeling lost and alone. In the midst of her emotional breakdown, she sought help from a therapist to cope with the devastating truth about her marriage. The therapist prescribed medication to support Maria through her mental health struggles. Around this time, Maria turned to writing journals as a way to process her thoughts and emotions. Soon, things were getting worse between Pellet and Maria. So, on September 19, 2020, Maria went to Janet's house and saw Pellet's car parked in the driveway. She confronted them at the house, and when he came out, Maria made him choose between her and Janet. In answer, he said he'll choose Janet. During the argument, Janet called the police, but Maria and Pellet had left by the time they arrived. The police called Maria while she was driving with Pellet, and they heard him yelling at her in the background. When they got home, he became so angry that he punched a hole in Maria's car windshield, which was an alarming display of force and anger. The following morning, on Sunday, September 20th, Maria sent Pellet a text message expressing her intention to hire a lawyer to help sort out their situation. However, he replied, suggesting that they handle things without involving lawyers, as he believed it would be too costly. Just a few hours after their text exchange, it seemed that he had a change of heart. He sent Maria an email expressing his deep sadness and inner turmoil. In the email, he conveyed his desire to sit down with Maria for an honest and non-argumentative conversation. This is what he said. "I am so sad I am hurting inside. I want to sit down with you to talk without arguing, a heart-to-heart." Maria replied to his email, and they both agreed to meet at approximately 5 p.m. the next night on Monday, September 21st. Before going to meet him, she was so nervous and then messaged her friend Yasmin Martinez that today they were going to meet. This is what she said: "I just ask if you can pray for me." But sadly, her prayers were not answered, and the meeting ended in a horrifying way. On September 22nd, 2020, Pellet dialed 911 in a panic, mentioning that his wife might have taken some prescription pills and was not breathing. Officer De La Cruz was the first who came to Pellet's house at around 1:40 a.m., and his body cam was also recording every detail. The officer found Pellet at the top of the stairs near the main bedroom. He was still wearing his green hospital scrubs and was doing CPR on his wife. Their 2 sons were sleeping in the rooms close by. As soon as the paramedics got there, they took over doing CPR on Maria. While first responders were working diligently to save Maria's life, another officer approached Pellet to inquire about the pills she had reportedly taken. Without hesitation, Pellet went to a nearby bathroom, searched through the medicine cabinet, and retrieved a bottle. He handed it to the officers, who later discovered it contained a prescription for clonazepam, a benzodiazepine medication used to manage acute anxiety, panic attacks, and sometimes epilepsy. Benzodiazepines, like clonazepam, work by slowing down the nervous system to induce a calming effect. Upon examining the bottle, the officer noticed that the pills were actually prescribed to Pellet, not Maria. Another detail that caught the officer's attention was that the pill bottle had been returned to the medicine cabinet. Typically, in cases of overdose, the pill bottle is found near the person. Afterward, Pellet was captured on body camera picking up the pill container from the floor and placing it in his pocket. De La Cruz questioned himself as to why he would retrieve the pills. Could he be concealing something? Another reason to suspect Pellet was De La Cruz also came across a needle catheter on the stairs in the couple's home. This seemed odd to him. Pellet and Maria had 2 young children, so finding a needle on the stairs raised questions about why it was there. This is not all. Investigators also uncovered more than just a needle. They also discovered syringes and IV equipment neatly packed in a medical bag. While this finding may seem ordinary given Pellet's profession as an anesthesia nurse, the presence of these medical tools outside a clinical setting raised intriguing questions for the investigators. Despite this unusual circumstance, Pellet informed the officers that Maria had been struggling with deep depression recently. He explained that her mental health had been deteriorating, leading her to take the pills in an attempt to cope with her overwhelming emotions. So, despite first responders' best efforts, Maria couldn't be revived. It's hard to believe, but by 3:58 a.m. that day, she was pronounced dead. After Maria was declared dead, officers took Pellet downstairs to the kitchen for additional questioning. He then explained to the officers that on that day, he and Maria had met for a conversation. After their discussion, they both got intimate and then he took a shower. Upon exiting the shower, he found Maria asleep. He went downstairs for a while, though the reason for this was not clarified. When he returned upstairs and approached Maria, he discovered she was unresponsive and not breathing. While talking, the officer noticed Pellet's strange behavior. He was sweating very badly and was literally unable to answer simple questions about the incident. The officer also observed that Pellet's level of sweating was noticeably higher than anyone else present, even the first responder who had been trying to save Maria's life for the past 2 hours. This made officers more suspicious of him. For further questioning, he was then taken by Sergeant Luis Mata to the police station. At the police station, Pellet was left alone in the interrogation room for a while before an officer came in. His every action was getting recorded on video. When officers watched the footage, they were shocked to see how Pellet suddenly went crazy. He started screaming, crying, hitting the walls, and throwing furniture around the room. He was being so loud and out of control that people in the hallway and other rooms nearby got scared hearing all the voices coming from his room. So, at 4 a.m., an officer, Sergeant Luis Mata, entered the room to talk to Pellet. During this conversation, he opened up once again about the events leading up to Maria's death. Shockingly, he also confessed to the officer that he had been involved with another woman named Janet. He revealed that he had actually left the family home 5 months earlier and was living with her at the time of Maria's death. He shared that he had been in a relationship with Janet for 2 years by then, and Maria had been aware of the affair for a while. According to him, on the night of Maria's passing, he visited the family home to have a conversation with her about their marriage. After their discussion, they got intimate. He said he thought Maria was asleep in her room, but only 10 minutes later when he returned to check on her, but tragically found her unresponsive. He later confessed to the officer that he gave Maria the medication prescribed to him, clonazepam, to help ease her anxiety and depression. However, he couldn't provide details to the officer about how much she had taken or how many pills were left in the bottle before she accessed them. Unfortunately, he was unable to provide any additional information to help clarify the situation. After all the questioning, he was released. So the next step was to do Maria's autopsy. The autopsy took place just 8 hours after her death, which was relatively soon after she passed away. This timing meant that whatever caused her death should still be detectable in her stomach contents. As the investigation into Maria's death intensified, the autopsy results delivered a shocking revelation. Contrary to initial suspicions, no traces of pills were discovered in her stomach. However, the medical examiner's report uncovered a shocking clue: a small, red mark on the inside of her elbow. What was more shocking was that it was a pinprick mark. The small red mark on her arm was concerning because it suggested she may have been injected with something. This unexpected discovery led investigators to explore the significance of this mark and its potential connection to her death. Soon, the investigators discovered another thing from Maria's house. So, what was that? A journal was found at Maria's place. As it was mentioned earlier, to cope with the anxiety and depression, she started writing a journal. And that journal helped investigators a lot to know who the culprit was. So what they found in that journal was really heart-wrenching. In that journal, she wrote her thoughts and experiences. Through her writings, the investigators discovered that Maria loved her husband and wanted to preserve their family, even though she recognized his wish to be with someone else. She wrote, "I want it to stop. My past haunts me, and I don't want to be sad anymore." In her journal entries, Maria detailed her heartbreak when Pellet left their Laredo home, leaving her to care for their 2 young sons. Her diary and recordings on her cell phone helped investigators uncover her husband's abusive behavior, documenting her emotional journey from grief to healing and a newfound optimism for the future. She also wrote in the journal, "My heart says one thing, my mind says something else. I am in this constant battle, tug of war. I want it to stop, but they won't. They keep me sad, and those are my tears. My future is foggy and unclear. My past haunts me, and my present is confusing. Lord, hear me cry. See my tears. Feel my pain. Bring me laughter. Bring me peace. Bring me happiness again. I don't want to be sad anymore. I don't want my heart to hurt. I don't want my mind to be in torture. Please, I beg you, O Lord." The day before her untimely death, Maria Munoz wrote the following in her journal. "What is it that I want? Number 1, move forward." The entries in Maria's journal the day before her death showed her desire to live and move forward with her life. There was no mention of suicide or any plans to end her life. So after going through her journal, the investigators didn't think she had committed suicide. They needed more information to understand what really happened. So this was what happened next. Pellet's previous employer, Dr. John Hunsinger, who was an anesthesiologist, became aware of the autopsy findings. He contacted the lead detective De La Cruz, who was working on the case, and expressed his concerns. Dr. Hunsinger recommended that the investigators should conduct a comprehensive toxicology screening, so they did that. In January 2021, investigator Sergeant Luis Mata and De La Cruz received the long-awaited toxicology test results. Contrary to Pellet's claim of clonazepam, Maria did not have that drug in her system. However, the toxicology report revealed a shocking truth: the presence of 7 other drugs: morphine, Demerol, Versed, Propofol, ketamine, lidocaine, and Narcan. These medications are commonly used in surgical procedures. Propofol and ketamine are used as sedatives and for pain management, often administered intravenously during surgical procedures. Most people cannot access these drugs easily, and even many nurses and other medical professionals may never come into contact with medications like propofol and ketamine unless they work directly in anesthesiology. The presence of propofol in Maria's body was the most shocking finding for the investigators. The investigators thought that Pellet is a nurse anesthetist, so he would have access to propofol based on his profession. When Dr. Hunsinger, who worked with Pellet and had experience using propofol, saw the amount found in Maria's system, he said it was the highest quantity he had ever encountered. Based on this, the doctor strongly believed that propofol was the specific cause of Maria's death, as Pellet would know the appropriate dosage to sedate someone or cause an overdose. Additionally, a small mark on Maria's arm indicated that she may have been injected with the substance. Investigators believed that, with the toxicological report, Pellet's suspicious behavior, and Maria's journal, they had enough evidence to arrest Pellet for the murder of his wife. So authorities soon got an arrest warrant against Pellet. De La Cruz wasted no time and went to arrest Pellet. Surprisingly, he did not resist arrest, almost as if he had anticipated and accepted his impending fate. Soon he was taken to the police station, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the investigation, as law enforcement officials prepared to question him again about the events surrounding Maria Munoz's tragic death. He had to face the consequences of his heinous act. So the trial started on March 21st, 2023. As the legal proceedings unfolded, both the prosecution and defense presented their cases. A prosecution team composed entirely of women, known as Maria's team, utilized Maria Munoz's journal entries to construct a compelling case against Pellet. This was done to illustrate to the jury the type of wife and mother Maria was. The prosecutors described Maria as an excellent mother who was caring and intelligent. They expressed feeling her vibrant spirit through the pages of her journal. During that trial, the prosecutors also suspected that Pellet first drugged Maria by putting some substances in her drink to make her sleepy. Once she was unconscious, he injected propofol into her arm. Prosecutors also believed that Pellet waited a long time before calling 911 so that the first responders would not be able to revive her when they arrived. The prosecutors stated that the journals helped them comprehend the challenges Maria faced, which in turn fueled their determination to seek justice in her case. During the final arguments, Pellet's lawyer, Roberto Bali, informed the jurors that his client wanted to work things out with his wife, Maria Munoz, before her passing. Bali reminded the jury about the medical examiner's report, which said Maria's cause of death was still unclear. He told them there was not enough proof to show Pellet was responsible for her death. Bali pointed out that Pellet had given Maria a drug called Narcan on the night she died, which is used to reverse overdoses. He even said both Pellet and Munoz struggled with drug addiction. Bali also argued that Maria Munoz willingly consumed the drugs without coercion, as there were no signs of force on her body. However, after investigating Maria's social circles, friends, and family, it became clear that she was not a drug addict, and Pellet was the only person who could have provided her with that substantial quantity of propofol. Authorities were also able to convince Pellet's girlfriend, surgical nurse Janet Arredondo, to testify against him. She revealed that he had admitted to her that he gave Maria something to calm her down and confirmed that he had brought drugs, including propofol, home from work. The jury took less than 1 hour to reach the verdict. At last, after a 9-day trial on March 30th, 2023, a jury reached a verdict, finding Pellet guilty of the murder of his wife, Maria. On April 27, 2023, Pellet received a life sentence for the murder conviction, plus an additional 10 years and a $10,000 fine for tampering with evidence. So, where is Pellet now? Joel Pellet is currently serving a life sentence at a Texas Department of Criminal Justice, facing the consequences of his heinous actions. His imprisonment stands as a symbol of accountability and a solemn tribute to Maria's life, ensuring that her memory is honored through the pursuit of truth and the upholding of justice. The motive behind the killing is unclear, but according to the prosecution, Joel Pellet's motive for killing his wife Maria Munoz was rooted in his desire to end his marriage and be with his girlfriend Janet Arredondo. Ultimately, justice had to be served, and the verdict ensured that Pellet was held accountable for his actions. The jury's decision brings some measure of closure to this tragic case, affirming that such heinous acts will not go unpunished. The conviction underscores the importance of upholding justice and sends a clear message that those who commit such crimes will face the full extent of the law.